Hello, my name is Kit Cabello, and I'm one of the co-founders of Veracity and Defiance, and I'm here today with two Bernie Sanders delegates. Can you please, each of you, introduce yourselves to us?
My name is Jeff Epstein. I am a... Where's the camera? There? Okay, hi. I'm a New Jersey delegate for Bernie Sanders, and I live very close to here without traffic. I'm 25 minutes down the road, and...
My name is Michelle McFadden-Nicola. I'm a Bernie Sanders delegate from New Jersey as well, from Middlesex County.
Now, obviously, early on when this campaign first started, each of you, at least to tell us in your own way, why'd you decide to get involved and support Bernie Sanders? Like, what made him stand out compared to the other Democratic candidates?
Before Bernie Sanders, I never did anything politics in my life, aside from vote. I voted, but I've never done anything politics at all. And I never even heard of him before late August last year. And now my life here forward is completely dedicated to the revolution that he started.
Before I ask you the same question, why were you never really involved with politics? What was about the political system that didn't get you involved until this very moment?
I always grew up of don't question, just do what you're told, and never felt that doing anything in the government really made a difference. My vote doesn't matter, and I don't hear any politicians trying to listen to me or what's important to me. And politics is a separate world that I don't belong in, that I'm not part of. And Bernie Sanders turned that on its head. He taught us, he opened our eyes, he taught us what politics is like, what's supposed to be, what it should be, what the real issues are in the world, and if we knew what he taught us if I knew what he taught us when I was younger, I could have been making a difference my whole life. And it took all of this time to, all of a sudden, my eyes are open now. He's taught us what it means to be a politician. Just tell the truth, learn the truth, avoid anyone who tells you otherwise. And it's simple, and they try and make it complicated and verbose and obtuse, and it just doesn't need to be that way. We make the rules. We are the government. We are who we deserve.
And why did you get involved with the Bernie Sanders campaign?
I did not know who Bernie Sanders was 2 years ago. I started to see a lot of my friends posting on Facebook and Twitter about Bernie Sanders' platform, and he just said everything exactly the way that I had always thought it needed to be said. He had all of the issues that I was concerned about, and more so. So he's been an educator. So the reason that I got involved in the campaign is because I really couldn't not get involved in the campaign. I was compelled. And the more I got involved, the more I found myself getting passionate about it. And so I ran for freeholder along with Bernie because in New Jersey you need to have a slate of candidates.
You were on the slate with him?
Yep,
Okay.
I was on the slate with him in Middlesex County. So we were actually told to please leave the race because it was complicating things for the Dems in Middlesex County. And the only reason that we ran for freeholder was to do the right thing for Bernie. We felt that it was an unfair rule. Many other states, that wasn't the case. You just put yourself on the ballot as a presidential candidate. And so he was a major party candidate, and they weren't giving him any respect. And so we decided to run with him.
So she and I are two of only around 40 candidates in the entire country that have been personally endorsed by Bernie Sanders. I ran it as a surrogate in Burlington County. So, rock on, I had no idea.
So obviously, during the early parts of this campaign, there was clearly some early signs of voter fraud, voter suppression, and voters being purged from voting records. How do you feel now that the recent information that was released 2 days ago that proves that the Democratic Party was working in cahoots with the Clinton campaign? How does that make you two feel? And in many ways, do you feel that Bernie Sanders supporters are finally justified in saying that, yes, we were dealing with a rigged system the whole time?
It really just validated what we all knew. I mean, it was obvious the entire time. And we've only gone, the emails that were released by WikiLeaks are the most recent ones from the present down to like March, and I know that there was perhaps a more recent one a couple of days ago. I don't know what the range of that one was, but if that's enough for Deborah Wasserman Schultz to quit and her temporary replacement to quit, then how much more is going backwards in time towards the beginning of the campaign? It really just validated what's already been, we already knew. I mean, we already knew. Actually, Election Justice USA, I don't know if it was yesterday or today, they just released their full 100-page report on election fraud, which I have not had a chance to read, but I am very excited to read.
And how do you feel about the recent information being released that the Democratic Party was working alongside the Clinton campaign? How does that make you feel as a Bernie Sanders supporter and as a Bernie Sanders delegate?
Funny enough, I would like to say that I was surprised by it, but I was not surprised at all. We all saw evidence of it in every primary that we were following closely. We saw evidence of it in lots of different ways. I saw evidence of it in the rules in in New Jersey, having to run as a freeholder and then being told that we were making things complicated for him. So I don't know how deep this issue has sunk into the DNC, but I don't think that you can say it's one person's problem. And if they think that people are going to be consoled by Debbie Wasserman Schultz getting her job taken away from her, that's really not enough. And she was handed a job the minute after she was let go from the DNC.
How does that make you feel, though, the fact that she got an honorary co-chair as Clinton's campaign aide?
That was, I want to say, just a big, F you to the Sanders. This was a big fuck you to the Sanders supporters and the Sanders campaign and all of the people that came out of obscurity to support him. I mean, so many of us did not get involved in politics before the past couple of years. I actually have a little bit of a different story, but it's also because of a privatization of our public schools happening. And so I was involved in the political process, I guess, earlier, but still, my earlier life, I really didn't pay as much attention as I did. And thanks to Bernie Sanders, I think lots of us had that same reaction, and we're not going anywhere.
Actually, because of Bernie Sanders and what he taught us, and we can make a difference, and we could have always made a difference for our whole lives if we knew. I really feel like I've significantly grown up since discovering Bernie Sanders and learning what he's taught us all.
How did you two get to become delegates in the first place for Bernie Sanders? Like, what did you have to do? What was the process in regards to becoming one for, obviously, Bernie Sanders?
I was a super volunteer for months. I don't know if that made a difference or not, but I applied online to the New Jersey Democratic Committee to be a delegate for him. And then a few months later, I got notified by the campaign that I was among the pool of people who would be chosen to be delegates. So I went to the mandatory meeting if I wanted. I felt like I was in the playoffs, and I had to go to this mandatory meeting in order to be able to. And it turned out that as soon as I got there, I was already chosen to be a delegate. And what that means is you're a delegate candidate. It took me a long time to figure this stuff out. You're a candidate to be a delegate. You're on the ballot with Bernie Sanders. Now, I thought that they would actually choose among the specific delegates, and I think in some states they do. But in our state, when you chose Bernie Sanders, you automatically chose the entire slate. So you didn't get to choose the individual delegates. But how I ultimately became a delegate was that because I was such a super volunteer and ran my own campaign, and I was on the line just like she was to help him get a good spot on the ballot, I was chosen among those people based on how many votes he got.
Yeah.
So they had to choose a limited amount of people based on how many he got.
Yeah, so there's so many delegates, and he had to earn all of them. He earned our spaces, and I think what happened with the two of us was similar. We both were dedicated to the campaign, and I think that the Sanders campaign identified us as dedicated, and we were willing to run with him. We were willing to put our names out there alongside his, and that must have meant something, because that was, I believe, what made us delegates in the Jersey.
How did you become a delegate yourself? What's your story? How did you become a delegate for Bernie Sanders?
It's pretty much exactly the same. I started volunteering, and I was sharing information on social media, and I think my name must have gotten out there in a lot of different venues. And then I got a phone call asking me if I would be willing to run with Bernie as a freeholder, because the Sanders campaign learned at the last minute that this was going to be an issue. And so
it really was last minute. It was chaos.
It was chaos. It was like a month before, right? I mean, I don't remember it being more than a month.
It was the day that I handed in the petitions for our signatures for being delegate and for being. Oh no, I'm talking. Yeah, the freeholder was chaos. The delegate and the getting him on the ballot was relatively easy.
Yeah.
But the day that I handed in the petition for the petition for Bernie Sanders to get on the ballot and for the delegates to get on the ballot was the day that the campaign called me and said, "Hey, you want to be surrogate? You have 3 days to gather 300 signatures."
Wow.
And I was like, "Sure." And
we
it
had
was
a week. We had a week to
I
gather
had
200.
3 days.
Jeff, that's amazing.
It was the craziest weekend
I'm sure.
I have had. I mean, it was an insane weekend, and there's no way I could have done it on my own. The people, the people around me. I mean, a total stranger spent 12 hours gathering signatures for me one day.
Yeah, I think I can't believe I forgot that part. We had, other people who were like cheering us on, and we had an event in a pub where I live, and we asked people to come, and we asked the Sanders campaign, can you send out like a text? People drove from all over New Jersey to come and sign our petition so that we could help Bernie get on the Middlesex County ballot. It was, I mean, it gives me chills to think about it, but all they did was they showed up and said, we heard that you were needing, signatures. So we drove from East Brunswick, we drove from Freehold, 20, 30 miles, and
shout
more.
out to Susan. She's the one that spent a whole day. I never even heard of this woman before, and she spent an entire day, 12 hours, collecting signatures for this total stranger.
Yeah, I had the same experience with dozens of people who offered to take the paperwork, have their family sign it, bring it back to me, or that kind of thing. And I couldn't take them up on it in some cases because I had to be the one to collect the signatures, I was told. But I learned afterwards. But anyway, it was an event, to get all these signatures in such a short time. I was driving around trying to collect signatures. So it was, short answer, it was a lot of volunteering. It was a lot of volunteering for Bernie, and it matters. We are not people who have money. We are not people who have titles. I think we earned our spots here.
I'd like to ask, what were the major super volunteer things that you did?
I phone banked like crazy, and
phone banking was one of the major key components for the Sanders campaign, as well as donating. It was done by individual volunteers.
And knocking on doors.
Yes, so I knocked on doors, I canvassed on the weekends, I phone banked when I could. I would do a half an hour here, an hour there. I would lock myself in the bedroom to do that because I have a family, so I would try and get a little bit done here and there. My husband and I decided to donate $100 out of a very tight budget every single month. So we did everything. I feel like we did everything that we possibly could have with our limited means to help the campaign. And I still feel like it wasn't enough because Bernie has done an incredible job. I think he's a beautiful person, and he sacrificed so much for us to be able to understand what we understand and for us to get involved.
So obviously 2 weeks before the convention, and even in last night's speech, Bernie Sanders was somewhat endorsing Hillary Clinton and telling that, yes, I'm going to concede, it's over, and I'm asking people to help out Hillary Clinton, the Clinton campaign. As delegates, how do you feel about Bernie Sanders' decision to do that? And where do you see the future of the political revolution going from here?
Well, he didn't concede until today.
Right.
Didn't concede until 2 hours ago, whatever it was. And that's what caused the walkout, which I'm sure we'll get into. But he endorsed 2 weeks ago. Was it 2 weeks ago?
Yes.
He endorsed 2 weeks ago, which does not mean concede. He just acknowledged that she is likely to win the candidacy. She's likely to win the nomination. He did not say, my delegates are released to you. He did not say, please vote for Hillary. We got to get her. He said, we must elect Hillary, and that's a fine line between you must vote for Hillary. But I think it's a very important one because he knows that a lot of his supporters don't want to vote for Hillary, don't like Hillary, are really repulsed by her. And for him to say, please vote for Hillary, or you have that would be a betrayal. But he did not do anything that he didn't say that he was going to do. He did it a little earlier than was expected. He said he was going all the way to the convention, and he technically did, but that endorsement really made it feel like he didn't. But given that he did nothing, He didn't do anything that he didn't promise to do. He did concede tonight. I unfortunately missed that moment. I don't know, unfortunately, but I missed that moment. And then when it happened, do you want me to go into this now? 500 people. My estimate is 500 people, 500 delegates walked out. And I was swept up in that. I did not choose to walk out myself. I would not choose to do that. I don't agree with it. But I completely respect what they're doing. They have real reasons for doing it. I mean, that's an understatement. And so.
Well, then let me ask this: those 500 delegates who walked out, were Bernie Sanders delegates and Bernie Sanders volunteers specifically targeted by the DNC? Were they harassed more? Were they blocked more from entering the convention center? Because there are many reports on Facebook activist groups and on Twitter or on Instagram saying like we're being denied, we're being pushed around. What happened on the ground was the Bernie Sanders delegates and Bernie Sanders volunteers.
So what I understand, according to Jordan Chariton's report and some rumors that I've heard, but well, they're not rumors. Jordan Chariton has reported from TYT Politics, is all Bernie Sanders volunteers, official volunteers who had access to the floor or wherever it was, who had access to the Wells Fargo Center, had their credentials completely revoked. I don't know the reasoning. I don't know the purpose. I don't know what advantage that gave them or how that hurt us. I don't quite get that. But all of our volunteers, 600, 800 volunteers, their credentials were revoked, and they didn't find out, as far as I understand, until they approached the security check and they said, sorry, you can't come in.
Who can make that authority? Who can make that kind of decision?
I can only guess that the Democratic Party. I can't know. I forget your other question, though.
I was basically asking how you guys feel about Bernie Sanders making that concession, but you went into the story about why the delegates were walking out, and that was one of my next questions to ask you. But I wanted to ask you, how did you feel about Bernie Sanders and his obviously 2-week early endorsement of Hillary Clinton and then his concession speech tonight?
I read a meme a long time ago that rang really true for me, and it was that if you can think of any kind of decision that we had done, we had made as a country where we had gone wrong, you can find a video of Bernie speaking up against it. I think he's got 5 years in advance. So I believe that throughout his lifetime he's had impeccable judgment, and I believe that he did what he believed to be the right thing to do. And I think that he's doing this, and he's doing all of this for the good of the country. I don't think that the man has an ego at all. And so I believe him when he says that he thinks that, we need to unite and we need to stop Donald Trump. And I think that he believes that it's a major party that has to stop Donald Trump. It has to be the Dems to stop Donald Trump. So I think that's what he was sending out there. I don't know if he would agree, but I think he would be very proud of what happened tonight, of people walking out and having a voice, because, come on, there was election fraud.
Were you one of the delegates that walked out?
I was. Yeah, and I've been saying all day, it felt like it was just a spontaneous decision. Earlier in the day, we had actually talked about it, and I said that I wouldn't do it. I don't think that it's, got a purpose. And I was going to stay. But it really didn't feel like we had any reason to stay. And so afterwards, there was no anger from me. It was just, I gathered my stuff and I started to walk out.
You're not wanted.
No.
I don't want to be where I'm not wanted. But,
exactly.
But again, I was not one of the ones that chose to walk out. I was sort of swept up in it, but it was like not. But I want to say I live streamed everything that happened right as the delegates walked out I just stopped 20 minutes before we started this interview, so it was like 4 hours on Citizens Media. I live streamed exactly. I live streamed it. I live streamed the people going into the press building.
Yeah, it was the media tent.
The media tent, and that's where they were doing their sort of silent protest. And one really eerie thing was that there was police lining the front window. It's a window building, a glass building, and so there were Philadelphia police lining the front of that building. And there was one place where you can go in if you had credentials. and all of the people inside the building, she was inside, I was outside live streaming, and they were at the window like a third world country where there's a refugee camp where the only way that a father on the outside can communicate with or touch the person, their child on the inside, is like touch their fingertips through the holes in the fence. That is what it felt like to me when I saw her in the window. I have memorized those speeches. I mean, I really listened to them for months on end, over and over again, the same thing, and the more I heard it, the more I liked it. It's like that's all there is in life.
Right.
Roughly speaking, that's all there is in life. If these things happen, life gets better. But it was teaching us, it was planting the seeds. It was teaching us how to fish. It was, this is everything there is from A to Z. I mean, I think he could have gone deeper, but I think he picked the right balance of that. He taught us how to take this political revolution into the future, and he has taught us how to fish. And now with the endorsement and the concession, he has let us go, and now it is our turn to take this revolution to the next step, and I'm sure he will guide us. He will be the symbol of it, but now the revolution is ours. This was never about Bernie. I think some people were stuck on, I want Bernie, Bernie or bust, and clearly we're not happy with that. Hillary will likely be the president, certainly not Trump. That would be bad, but this was never about Bernie, and he said that every single speech. And if you were stuck on I want Bernie, then I just think that there's a bigger picture.
Yeah, I would.
And what do you want to say to those Sanders supporters too that are feeling heartbroken, angry, upset that Sanders isn't the Democratic nominee?
I would. I actually, after his speech in the convention hall that he gave to delegates, it was a private.
In the convention hall. This was the one in the morning.
This was the one in the morning.
The place called the convention hall, not the Wells Fargo Center where the actual convention was taking place.
That's right. So we were invited to a private speech for delegates and other people like platform committee members and others. It was a closed door meeting as far as I understand, but somehow I think C-SPAN was there, right? So I don't know.
Is that right?
Yeah. Anyway, the speech was something that we had in the room. I think all had hopes that he was going to say he was running as a third-party candidate, right? So we heard this speech.
Because he never...
No, of course not, because he doesn't ever mess with people. When he says he's going to do something and he makes a promise, he does it, and that is 100% true. So afterwards, I left the speech. Everyone had entered, the sweltering streets looking for the buses to take us over here, wound up getting stuck, not being able to find a bus. And there was a delegate from Kansas who was running for a Kansas Senate seat. And he saw me with my shirt and everything, and he said, "Pretty sad, huh?" And I actually stopped him and I said, "Actually, no, I'm not sad. I feel like what just happened in there was Bernie said, listen, I'm going to take the training wheels off, and 1,900 of you are going to ride the bicycle. And you're all going to have my guidance. I'm going to watch you, and I'm never going anywhere." And it's just what a parent does with a kid. And he taught us. He sent us on our way. He probably bought us the bicycle, for God's sake, right? Like, we didn't even know.
I don't get that part of the announcement. The rest of it's awesome.
Anyway, yeah. What I mean is, he built it. He built it from the ground up. He handed it off to us. And now we are responsible for it. And like I said before, he's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere. So I think the Sanders supporters that are so upset that they will not vote for anyone but Bernie, I think they do need to listen to his message. I think he's telling us we need to vote our conscience, whatever that is. He's not telling us exactly what to do, but he is guiding us. And I do believe that there are 1,900 of us at minimum, little tiny Bernies running around the United States right now. And more. I mean, my children who are 14, 13, and 10 are so inspired by him. There are kids here.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and they pay attention when we talk about him, when we watch his speeches. they could probably quote lines from his speeches.
My kids joke with me that they're going to vote for Hillary, and then they run away.
They mess with you.
Oh my God, that's terrible.
But I wanted to. Oh damn! What was I going to say? I don't remember. I was going to say something good, but I don't remember.
Well, you guys have been through a lot, and obviously during this entire primary, during this convention here in Philadelphia, there's a lot of people who are grateful for you two stepping up to be Bernie Sanders delegates. I, for one, am grateful for the chance to sit down to talk to both of you, to at least hear your story, why you guys got involved with the campaign, what you guys went through as delegates, and your obviously your high message of hope, saying that it's not over yet. Bernie Sanders called for the American people to get involved in their political system. Already heard from both of them that they were normally never actively involved in politics until Bernie Sanders woke them up. And now what they're saying is all of us need to get involved. In fact, that's what Bernie Sanders is telling us too. It might not have ended the way we wanted it to end, but in the long run, it's up to us now to carry the revolution. As Jeff has said, that, it wasn't about Bernie Sanders. So you have some final notes?
I wanted to say one thing about Bernie or bust, which is I don't agree with them, and I do think that there's a bigger picture, and I wouldn't choose that. But again, like I said before, they didn't leave the party left them. Even though I don't agree with them, even though I do think that there is a bigger picture, that it's not about Bernie, but it doesn't matter what I think, because what they think, just like we left tonight, and maybe that was rude, but it doesn't matter that it was rude. It's like, what's the history behind that reaction? What's the history behind that decision? Like, when Black Lives Matter protests, maybe they're rude, but what's the history behind that rudeness? There's hundreds of years of history behind, African Americans being treated badly, and we have, this campaign for a year and for decades of being treated badly by the Democratic Party, and until you sit down with those people and find out what they think the problem is, and they feel that you understand what the problem is for them, and they feel that you know what their solutions are. So we need to sit down with the Bernie or bust people, and regardless if we disagree with their methods and their choices, there is something that is really bothering them, and until we sit down with them and determine what they feel is the problem, and that we internalize what they feel is a problem, what they think is a solution, and we work towards, maybe there's different ways to approach their problems, different ways to address them. They have real issues, and I just mean to say that,
there's a bigger picture, and that we all need to
impose my solutions. There's a bigger picture, and you're wrong. I do think those things, not that you're wrong, but I do think the specific things that I said, a bigger picture and so on. But there's a really huge thing behind what you're doing, and that's what we need to address.
Thank you very much for your time. I can't thank you guys enough. This is Kit Cabello, shooting live with Veracity and Defiance here in Philadelphia. Thank you, both of you, for your time. Please follow us on our YouTube channel, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and we're going to still keep on covering the Democratic National Convention. Once again, thank both of you so much.
Shout out to Citizens Media, facebook.com/citizensmediatv, and again, I had a live stream of everything that happened with the delegate walkout.
Thank you.